with social media, right? If it's not for business, right? Like if you like your income is like not tied at all to it, you should just delete it.
Right.
Welcome to Breaking Barriers. You know your path. We know the obstacles, and we can teach you how to tear them down. And now your host, CEO and founder of Adapting Social, John Vigero.
All right, we got Matthew Iglesias back with us.
Jumping right into it.
Come on.
That's right,
dude,
man.
This is the three-peat.
A three-peat, right?
This is the
trilogy.
Trilogy. Dude.
Jordan style.
For people who don't know, my guy Matthew over here, incredible story. I actually just shared this with your dad. So Matt came through with his pops tonight, which I'm stoked to meet. The legend behind the legend. So one of the things that's so cool though, and I always talk about this every time, but for new listeners that are listening in here, you know, we were at this event. Right. I gotta retell it every time. I actually was just telling my brother this story. And so, you know, one of the things that motivated the shit out of me, like, you know, again, the first time I met you was that when I first started Adapting Social, right? I was 17. And then I'm at this event that Raul asks me to come to, right? He's like, hey, come through, right? And now he's got us in this position where he's like, we're meditating. You know, at this point, we don't know what we're meditating about yet because he has us breathing first, and then there's a picture of these angels and stuff, and then eventually it becomes our parents.
Right.
And so we have 60-year-old men crying, right? We're all crying in the crowd, and unbeknownst to me, you and I were the youngest guys there, right? And I think Gerard Adams was like my age at the time. So him and I were like the youngest people there. You 17, I think I was like mid-20s. And long story short, of course, as everybody's crying, Raul picks on me. He goes, John, stand up and tell us what you're thinking.
Right.
So I stand up and I start crying. I'm thinking about stuff with my family, my parents, and never met you formally.
Right.
To this point. So my guy, the gentleman that he is, the big heart that he has, he comes walking over and he gives me a hug, right? Yeah. And now I'm already crying, and then he comes over. Now I'm crying to him, I'm hugging you, we're crying. And I'm like, I fucking love this kid. And from that moment, this kid was a brother for life. And the big takeaway for me there, and we're gonna dive back into this, and we do this every year, but before we move on to the rest of the podcast, but one of the biggest things that took away for me was like, it almost restores like faith in people and humanity almost, because it's like, you didn't know me, right? There was a bunch of people in that room, right? Nobody else got up and did what you did, right? And came to comfort me. Yeah. And and I remember thinking to myself like, wow, like, that right there, like I felt, again, it's in a room full of men, even though other people are crying, I'm the one standing up. And you know how like when you're crying, sometimes you have the squeaky bitch voice? I was squeaky bitch voicing it up hardcore. Right. And then you came over and gave me a hug. But it really showed me that, at the end of the day, when you make those genuine connections and you step out, because I'm sure for you it might have been like, damn, should I get up?
Absolutely.
You probably were in your head too.
No, 100%.
You were probably like, damn, do I get up? Like, should I get up? But you did it. You went past your comfort zone. And now, again, like I said, you're a brother for life. Yeah. And I think people out there, a lot of times, like people that are from your generation, Gen Z, right? I feel like that's like a unicorn move. I don't know if many people would do that, right?
Absolutely not, especially my generation. I think it's probably general across
everybody,
but I think especially my generation
that's what I'm saying.
Is very accustomed to just doing things digitally, online, not having to really cross that that comfort zone. Yes. You know what I'm saying? You can just do it digitally. You're at home. Nothing bad or good might have you send it digitally, and whatever happens. Yeah. But in person, in the heat of the moment, when because in that moment I was like, that was definitely an uncomfortable move.
Yeah.
There's 3 columns. John is on the right column of seats, and I'm on the left column of seats. So not only do I have to just get up, I have to cross an entire column of people to get to the other side of the room.
Wow.
So in that moment, I was just thinking, it just felt like the right thing to do. But I had those thoughts, like, this is my first time there, right? Similar story, like Raul just inviting me there. I had this is all so new, going through like a roller coaster of emotions. There's a bunch of at the time 17, significantly older men, high level businessmen.
Sure.
And the whole, especially at 17 years old, you perceive these guys as strict, like
warriors,
boom. Hard ass guys, But in that moment, it just felt like the right thing to do. Yeah. And that's actually something that I've been learning a lot recently, is trusting that kind of instinct and feeling of when something's the right thing to do. Yeah. You go and do it no matter what happens. Right. Right? Living in that truth, no matter what the outcome might be. And so in that moment, it just felt like man, this is what I feel like is true. This is what I feel like is the right thing to do, what I want to do. Dude. And it just,
But what's so wild? Did it. And I think this can be even relatable to somebody who's like a guy that's like, damn, that's a pretty cute girl. I want to go say something to her.
Oh my goodness.
And he doesn't do it, or a girl to a guy, or whatever, you know, like those moments, and like that to me, like maybe you never did that, we wouldn't even be here.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't even be talking to you. I don't talk to anybody else from that event besides Raul.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and there's all good people that, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But like, you know, you were the one person I connected with because of that move, which is insane.
Right.
So it's almost like that butterfly effect. Like you could have not did that. Right? Or the guy that's watching this that's like, damn, I was at a bar, I saw this cute chick, and I really wanted to go talk to her. Like, I didn't do it. Like, what could have happened if he did do it?
Oh my goodness.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That one domino effect of you literally doing that, like, again, I don't know, I think it was such a power move, and especially for a 17-year-old dude, I give you so much credit, bro.
Yeah.
So much credit for that. So, everybody watching in, I think, again, like, when I'm going back to, like, honestly, I agree with you, generationally, like, omni-generational, like everybody probably, I would say 90% of people probably wouldn't have done that. I think Gen Z is just a higher level, and millennial too.
Right.
I think Gen Z and millennial, like mine and yours, like most, I think it'd be 95% wouldn't have gone up, maybe even more.
I agree with. I would say probably more.
Maybe more, maybe 98.
Yeah, 98% at least. I think 98% at least.
Right.
Honestly.
Right. And so I think, damn, like I learned a lot from you in that moment. Right. That's why I think one of the biggest things that was a big takeaway from me from that event. And one of the biggest things that I learned was that, like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how old somebody is because you can learn something from anybody.
Right.
You know? Because I remember it brought me back to when I was 17, and I was like, damn, everyone probably doesn't take me seriously. You know, whatever. I'm trying to start this business. I'm out here wearing a suit, going to pizzerias. Fucking, how's your website? And then I see you, and you did that, and I was like, damn. And then later on, I found out that you were 17. Like, later, I think it was later that day.
Yeah,
Someone's like, yo, that kid Matt.
Yeah, I might have been dinner. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. Because somebody was like, yo, what Matt pulled was like so awesome. Like that was a really cool moment. I'm like, yo, that dude's awesome. How old is he? They're like, he's 17. I'm like, shut the fuck up. And he's like, yeah, he's 17. I was like, holy shit, dude. Like that's powerful. So anyway, it motivated me and inspired me. So I appreciate you doing it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's like you mentioned, like that butterfly effect, like
bang.
You never know, like what one thing,
right,
like might create like a chain of events to lead to something else. Like
1,000,000%.
Like I look back on a lot of things that have like happened like throughout the course of my life, and I'll be like, wait, like I did that, which then led to this, which then led to that. Like just in that same story, right? Like with Raul, my friend, right? The way I met Raul was at a Gary Vee event.
Oh
right?
No shit.
And I saw Gary Vee was doing an event in New York City,
right?
And I actually spoke to my friend Brian. I'm not sure if you remember him or
the film guy.
Yeah. So my friend Brian.
You still do film with him or no?
He moved out to North Carolina, so we still talk and stuff like that, but no longer filming or anything like that. But long story short, with that event, I was like, dude, we should go to this Gary Vee event. It'd be awesome. You'd be able to see Gary Vee in person. We watch his stuff all the time online. Like we should go. And he was like, no. Like he had like a hard objection to it, right?
Wow.
And I sat there for probably like an hour, just like, dude, like just handling his objections. Just like, dude, like,
were you trying to convince him?
Go. Yeah, like 100%. I was like, dude, we should go. Like we should go because this reason. And like, I spent so much time convincing him to do it. And eventually he said yes, right? And so that was the first thing that I got over to get to that event, right? So then we go to the event, and then at the end, right, we're standing there, and before this, I had seen Raul's ads online. And I would always think to myself, like, man, this guy's ads are good, right? And so then I see Raul going up the stairs because he like got like a VIP pass to like go and do the meet and greet with Gary.
Probably the son.
Yeah. And so then I told Raul, like, yo, I think that's a guy that I've seen his ads are really good. He's like, yo, you should go say something to him. And in that moment, I hesitated, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I should or not, blah, blah, blah. But then Brian was not pushing me to do it. And so then I ended up doing it, right? So then, because I walked into Raul, yeah, and then he was like, oh, he asked me who I was, where I lived, and stuff like that. He was like, oh, you should come to this event that I'm running this weekend.
Was that one?
Just so
Shut up.
Just so happened that was Leadership Summit that weekend where we ended up meeting.
Wow.
And so like these different moments where I was like literally consistently on the edge of something happening or not happening.
Wow.
And then it just so happened to fall the right way of like doing it.
Dude, you know what's wild?
Crazy.
So do you know, I don't know if you know him, do you know Joe Gelani?
The name rings a bell a little bit.
Because he introduced me to Raul. And literally probably like 2 weeks before the event. And I wasn't going to go either. I literally, no joke, was like, oh, I got this. I was so busy at that moment. I'm like, oh. And then he's like, oh, just come, whatever. Like, Raul was like, just come through. Like, I think you'll like it, whatever. All you have to do is pay for your room, essentially.
Right.
So I was like, all right, I'll go, whatever. Because what was it? 2 days, 3 days?
It might have been 3.
Yeah.
Two or three.
And I'm like, all right, I'm going to go. So I went. And but I remember Joe reached out to me. So I've known Joe for a long time. He's from New York. And he's like, you got to meet this guy, Raul. He's epic, like good dude. Get on the phone with him, like great energy.
Right.
Convinces me to come to this thing. And I was still like, I don't know.
Right.
Because I was busy. But it's so funny how that all wound up working out.
Right.
But so I want to start there now. So moving past the trilogy beginning convo. That's the 3P trilogy. That's how we got to start them each time.
Yeah.
For new listeners, obviously, who don't know, because I think it's such a big thing that you did. So.
Yeah, man. And one thing I want to touch on real quick, something you mentioned in the beginning, my dad being here.
Yeah.
Is awesome. I want to give him a quick shout out.
Give it to him.
My dad, when I was like literally, going to kindergarten, he was playing, Jim Rohn in the car.
Oh.
He was always, giving me like the motivational Rocky speeches, making me watch those videos as a little kid, right? I remember and I think it was in Rocky 6. You know that speech that Rocky gives to his son?
Fucking fire.
My dad printed that speech out, put it on my wall when I was a kid. And as a kid, I didn't completely understand all these things, right?
Right.
But looking back on it, there's no doubt in my mind that that was planting seeds.
Totally.
Like without a doubt.
Yeah.
Right? Because like even as like a kindergartner, first grader, second grader, I just had like this interest. I was like, Jim Rohn's talking about, this idea about, like the scorpion and the frog and like all these different things that Jim Rohn would talk about. And like, I just remember like all those little principles, right? And like, while maybe at the time, like I was like always interested, but I didn't internalize it as like personal development.
Right.
It was inevitably like planning in my subconscious. So, shout out to my dad.
Shout out to Pops back there.
For being intentional.
Epic. That's really epic. And I think, now that I'm in the season of like getting ready to have my first child, right?
Yeah, congrats on that.
Thank you. I've been really like that type of shit is shit that like just motivates the hell out of me. Because it's like, how do you create a child who is hungry in a world where everything is accessible?
Yeah, I think about that all the time too.
How do you do it, right? And actually, recently on my like a podcast like last week, we had these 2 mothers who are attorneys, and they live in the same like area. Both attorneys, pretty successful. COVID happens, and they both still communicated, but they realized that their kids like had zero financial literacy, right? They didn't say the kids were entitled. They used the terminology financial illiterate.
Okay.
So what they said was, they go, the kid broke a toy. And the mom was like, oh, what did you do? Like, what, you broke your toy? What happened? And the kid was like young, but he said, Mom, just order another one on Amazon. Like, money's free, right? Like, just order another one on Amazon. Because boxes come every day, everywhere, right?
Right.
So what she said was, she's like, wow. So she talked to her friend about it. She's like, yeah, my kids too. Like, a dish broke, and I was upset because, the way that it got knocked over, and I got told, just buy another one. One got, go to Amazon. One said, just buy another one. So anyway, point being is that their mission is to teach kids how to be more financially literate. Instead of saying, I want, how can I earn? Right? Changing the narrative. So anyway, going back to that, like they want to plant seeds, essentially what you just said with your dad, like that's what he was doing. Like that, to me, like that's a big journey for me now where I'm like, I want to be able to provide that, because it's almost like when you're a kid, right? You're the most like ever, your ability to learn new languages is the highest when you're a child, because you don't know limitations or how much work you have to put into something.
Right.
You just do until you fail, and then you eventually just get it.
Right.
So that's why, again, like my cousin, his kids right now, his kid's like 4 years old, and he speaks Portuguese and he speaks English.
No way.
Both. And he can switch on or off. He's only 4. Right? So what's wild though is like that seeds that you're talking about that's being planted, at that moment, it didn't feel like work to you. Because right now, like, again, like if you're like, okay, I'm going to New Jersey today, right? I'm going to Jersey, right? Like I'm going to fucking Jersey today.
Right.
You're like, but like I have to get there. There's so much I have to do to get there. My pops, we're going down there, whatever. It's work. There's all these things that go into that. When you're a child, you don't have any of that. You're just like, oh, interesting. Right? Interesting. So I think I give your dad a lot of credit too. So shout out to Pops. But I think that's such an amazing thing to do for kids, because when they're growing and learning, that's when there's no limits yet. There's no limiting beliefs. A kid doesn't say, I can't learn more than one language. Right? Or that concept is too hard for me. There is none of that.
Right.
Like this is the time that they're learning. And if you don't instill it in them when they learn their own ways, then you're fucked. My father-in-law gave me this amazing saying I always fucking quote him on, is if you don't raise your kid right while he's a kid, you'll have a big kid for the rest of your life. You see what I'm saying? So when you got a sponge, you got to fucking work with the sponge.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
100%.
So, but moving on, I want to connect with you. So you've been traveling around a lot, right? So every time I see you, I think you're in Arizona, you're here, you're there, you're fucking all over the place.
Yeah.
So what's up? What are you doing?
Man, that's a great question. I've been doing a handful of things, man.
Yeah.
But primarily just optimizing and just being obsessed on anything and everything that's gonna improve who I am as a man and in my skill set and in my capabilities.
Yeah.
You know? So if we go back to the last podcast last year.
Yes.
Right. So at the time, I was doing full on marketing, advertising, stuff like that.
Yep.
I was doing advertising for Raul, as well as a handful of other clients, stuff like that.
Yep.
And so, actually, funny enough, going back to kind of the point we were talking about before, to kind of give you like a little bit of the storyline.
Yeah.
So I'm doing that, but then back in like 2018,
right.
2018 or maybe even 2017, but we'll go with 2018.
Yeah.
There was this event called Econvention, right? It was in Brooklyn, New York.
Econvention.
Yeah, actually, it might have been Queens. It was Queens.
Okay.
It was in Queens. It doesn't matter. But it was like a event about e-commerce, marketing, online, digital marketing, advertising, all that stuff.
Right.
And at the time, I remember I was maybe 16 at the time, and the guy who was running the event, we had a sales call, right? And I remember the ticket was like $400, and I was giving him every objection in the book.
Right.
Right. And for $400, this guy could have easily just been like, "All right, kid, like, bye."
Right.
But for whatever reason, like, he stuck on the phone with me, and he was hard closing me on this ticket.
Right.
Right. And I think we ended up talking for like over an hour, and I ended up buying the ticket.
Right.
Pulled the trigger on it, but in hindsight, that $400 might have been like one of the best investments, if not like the best investment like I ever made.
Good.
Because of like how it ends up playing out. So at that event, ends up being a really cool event. But I end up specifically meeting this guy named Caleb Maddox. Are you familiar with who that is?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, he's like when he was younger, he was like a kid motivational speaker.
Oh, yes. He was one that could close fucking people, or like, he was like, I remember seeing him on Grant Cardone's channel.
Yeah. He was on Power Players.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, so we're the same age. And so we meet at that event. He speaks at the event, and then we connect at that point, right? And so, long story short, through time, right, between 2018 to 2022, right, this year, we kept the contact, right, just as friends, like just kind of building a relationship. And through that time, he had been like, trying to be like, yo, dude, like, what do you have going on? Like, we have XYZ going on. Like, you should, join in on this. And then I would kind of talk to him about it a little bit, because Caleb is a master at like persuasion and like literally one of the best like you'll ever see. He's an absolute master. So he would kind of like entertain the idea, but then the chokehold would always be, hey man, you got to move to Arizona. That's the only way that you could actually be a part of any of this. I'd be like, I can't do that.
Yeah, I'm not going to Arizona.
I can't make that move. But then early 2022, maybe like around February this year, he was like, dude, what do you have going on? So I have XYZ going on. He's like, yo, listen, man. So what we're doing is, the things I've mentioned to you a couple times. Now we're actually no longer requiring anybody move to Arizona.
So you can be remote.
So you can be remote.
Right.
So I was like, okay, like I'll entertain this. I'll see what this is about, right? Because up to that point, my identity was entirely around, being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Right. So the idea of being a part of anything else, there was a lot of friction there, right? Because that's the number one thing that we're driven by is to be in alignment with who we believe we are.
Totally.
Right. So I was like, okay, but like, again, he's really great at, persuading and being able to, take what your vision is and like tie that to like something else, right? But in a genuine way, right? Not like in like a malicious.
That's part of the persuasion.
Right. No, 100%. I mean, I forgot what book it was.
Well, Warren Buffett says the second you can fake being genuine, you haven't made it.
Yeah, so like pretty much the only difference between like manipulation and persuasion is like where the intent is, right?
100%.
So like, because it's the same exact thing, right? In persuasion, you're doing something that is genuinely beneficial for the other person,
right?
But may also benefit you as well. But in manipulation, you're doing something that's
negative.
Not beneficial for them, but
sense.
entirely beneficial for you.
Totally.
So that's literally the only difference. But it's the same exact kind of tactics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So long story short, I kind of entertain it a little bit, and then again, right when we're kind of at the end, right, we're kind of like, yo, like, do you want to do this? So pretty much what it was doing sales, right, for an offer that they were running, right, with their partnering with another guy. And again, I was like,
I'm doing my thing.
Yeah, I'm doing my thing. Like, I don't know.
I'm building my thing.
Right. But then again, hard close.
Right.
Like, dude, like, just try this. Like, do it.
Right.
Like, try it.
And you were out there for a minute.
Right.
How long were you out there for?
What do you mean? In Arizona?
Arizona.
Well, I went to
Arizona. Seemed like a month.
Well, I'll get around to that. So I was like, all right, I'll try it. I'll give it a rip. So then after that, I tried it, right? And I was simultaneously doing all my
So you're
my
still
ads,
doing your thing.
All my marketing stuff I'm still doing it, right?
Right.
Then simultaneously, I'm starting to do this as well. And dude, that was probably one of the best decisions I ever made.
Really?
One of the best decisions I ever
made. Good.
Because it did two massive things.
Yeah.
Number one, it put me in elite proximity.
Right.
Like elite proximity. Like guys that were doing things that like.
That you were not, you're like, whoa.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, you know what I'm saying? Like, holy smokes. You know what I'm saying? Like.
So he's 21 right now.
He's about to turn 21 in December.
So he's 20.
But it's not even, dude, I'll tell you about it in detail, like when we're off the podcast.
Yeah.
But on the podcast, dude, like, just like, not even factoring him, the team, right? Which I think is probably one of the most impressive things about what he's built.
Right.
Is that like the players that he's like associated himself with.
Yep.
Like if they were to all go and do their own thing, like they would inevitably be bare minimum multi-six, but like more realistically seven-figure entrepreneurs.
Yep.
But like because he's created, you know, what he has, like all these players are kind of attracted to like the organization. So that is like just a massive like skip button.
Of course.
Right? It's like for my own personal growth.
Learning the shit.
And then secondly, like in my skill set.
Right.
Because one of the challenges that I found like doing all my own stuff is that like as like you scale and like you start to add more accounts, to manage all the prongs of the business on your own can like become a little challenging, right? Like when you're trying to like optimize like your sales skills, but then also like as you bring on clients, not only onboard those clients, but fulfill those clients and actually deliver on what you promised.
Yep.
And then like also continue to like, you know, prospect and like all that stuff. I was like, you know, from that perspective, actually optimizing certain skill sets and getting them to like elite levels is difficult when you're doing everything.
Of course.
Right? So specifically here, doing just sales, like being able to grow in that vertical tremendously. Like, dude, like looking back on like when I was like pitching marketing and my skill set then to now is like ridiculously
completely different.
Like, I remember at that time, I would be like kind of nervous to like ask like a business owner like different like emotional questions or like you know like ask them like about the vision in the business and like how that actually impacts them personally. Like really kind of feeling out like why, you know, buying a marketing service, you know, would impact them, right? Creating a gap. And like where they are now to where they want to be. I was always feeling comfortable doing that. But now that's literally what I do all the time.
So you have to.
Right? 100%.
Yeah.
It's like the core of the sale.
100%.
But I didn't completely internalize that then, but dude, now like it's like all I think about. So through that, right, through like growing my skill set and then also being in that proximity, you know, being able to go on to make, you know, more money than I've ever made. And like, you know, move out of my mom's house. And like start making these different moves, right? Which has been awesome. So then that eventually came to a point where from a time perspective, it was getting, you know, a little tight, right? Between like managing my ad accounts and then also managing that, right? So I eventually kind of came to a crossroads and I made a decision to, you know, let go of the accounts and just go 100% all in.
With Caleb.
Yeah, with Caleb.
Got it.
Yeah. So we've just been going hard there.
Dude, that's a huge step.
Yeah, no, 100%. And there was a lot of friction. There was a lot of friction for sure. For me internally, right?
Of course.
Because it's like a big shift in like who I perceive myself to be, who others perceive me to be.
Was a big part of that like boss versus now I'm working for somebody?
That was definitely a piece of it.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the best parts about kind of like the way they have it set up is like you don't really have that effect of like feeling like you have a boss. There's a lot of kind of like freedom to it in a sense where you don't feel like, you know, you kind of.
Is it almost like a real estate agent where like you kind of like, you do what you do, nobody's managing you?
I wouldn't say that.
Okay.
But just like the way the culture is, you're more so held accountable by like your own like goals.
Got it.
Right? It's like, hey man, like if you don't do X, Y, and Z, right? It's like you're not living up to like what you want for yourself.
Correct.
And it's like, you know what I'm saying? So it's
true.
Internal pressure versus external pressure.
Right.
Which is a massive difference.
Right.
Right. When you have internal pressure to like go and actually perform,
right,
it comes from a completely different energy than when you have the external pressure pushing you to do something.
Right.
You know?
Totally.
Kind of goes back to like your point about the kid, right? Like when you're raising a kid, you know, funny enough, like, you know, we go out, you know, work, close deals, build businesses, like these different things to be able to provide our families like a brighter future, right?
Yeah.
Like when I think about being a dad, I think about, you know, being able to be in a level of abundance financially,
right,
to where they don't have to worry about anything, right?
Right.
But then you create like a environment for them where like
it's easy.
It's everything is easy, right? And then where a lot of parents, you see them like kind of mess up and the kid gets, you know, like all bratty and like disrespectful because the parent starts putting a ton of external pressure on them.
Right.
Like, yo, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this, you need to do that. And they're like, yo, like,
what are you talking about?
Right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Versus, we talk about planting the seeds.
Right.
When those seeds are planted in like the culture of like the family, now it starts to have internal pressure to behave and be a certain way. I just came back from Arizona last month.
Yeah.
And the whole reason, kind of going back to the original point of like traveling, the whole reason I've been traveling to Arizona and stuff like that is like for, you know, Caleb's, you know, team
work
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Being in proximity with them in person. Yep. But long story short, I went to Jake Paul's boxing fight.
How was it?
It was dope. It was dope.
Was it?
But I was sitting there and I was just like, I was thinking to myself like, you know, there's this guy, you know, Logan Paul, his brother, right? And like his friends. And I'll be like, I was thinking to myself, man, like I've watched these guys like on my phone, right? Like in my bed, like watching their podcasts. And I thought to myself, like, I'm here watching them.
Right.
Right? If I wanted to, I can't call Logan and be like, yo, dude, like, can I come in impulsive?
Right.
I can't do that. Why?
Do that.
Because like I simply like have not done enough in the world to like have enough value to do that, right?
Totally.
Like, can Grant Cardone call up Logan to do that?
Yes.
I mean, he already did. He was on the podcast,
he was,
right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like,
Grant was on this one.
Right. Okay, let's go. I'm not, by no means am I like saying like, oh, like I'm like fiending for that. But what infuriates me all the time is like when I don't have access because of my own actions.
Correct.
I get like pissed off at myself and like it drives me like insanely.
Yeah. What Tony Robbins always says for those types of situations is to find yourself fascinated and motivated rather than infuriated. And it's funny how those all fucking kind of rhyme.
Right.
But like, because when you find yourself, I mean, anger is a fuel too.
Yeah.
They're all fuels, right?
Yeah.
Motivation's fuel, being fascinated is kind of a little bit of fuel, but anger is like almost like jet fuel. So it's like the combination, right, of all three of them.
Yeah.
But I love that though, and I actually had a conversation with my brother. I want him to be here today, but he's at this thing he's doing right now for real estate. So my brother right now, Tyler, he's 19. So him and I, you know, he's been somebody in my family who's like very quiet, does his own thing, hangs out with his friends, like doesn't really communicate much with the family on like what he's doing or where he's going or whatever, right? He lives with my parents. So anyway, long story short, we connected and he's like, listen, like I just feel like I'm at a point in my life where like I really want to go to the next level. Like, he didn't go to college. He wants to figure out what he wants to do. So now he's thinking about like real estate or real estate investing or whatever else. And, you know, it's like one of these things where he told me straight up, he goes, I'm straight up addicted to my phone. He goes, I sit in bed or sit on the couch and I'm watching what you just said you watch. I'm watching these guys' podcasts.
Right.
And he goes, I said to myself, like, why the fuck am I doing this? Like, I don't know these people that well.
Right.
But yet I'm sitting here, I'm spending hours on TikTok, hours on YouTube, hours on Instagram for people I don't even know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's cool because some of the shit they're doing I like because it's pop culture. But he's like, I feel like I'm wasting my life away.
Yeah, I've been there. I've been there.
So what would you say to somebody that's like 19, younger, whatever, younger than you, that is doing that?
I've got the perfect thing actually.
Look directly into that barrel. Fucking.
So essentially, with social media, right? If it's not for business, right? Like if you like your income is like not tied at all to it, you should just delete it.
Right.
Like you should delete it entirely. No, that's like a difficult move.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it'll save like your natural drive and ambition. Because what happens is, the reason why it's so addicting is because it's an instant gratification of dopamine in like your brain.
Correct.
Right? And like the only reason that dopamine exists in your brain is like to drive you like to the things that like lead to your survival.
Right.
Right? So like as an example, like if we were like bringing this back to like the caveman days.
Right.
Right? Like if you know, like you saw like, I don't know, you saw like a rabbit like hop across. Like your brain would give you like a little hit of dopamine, like, oh, like maybe you should go like chase that thing.
Right.
And like you'll get even more dopamine like once you catch it and kill it. Right. So you could eat and you could survive. Right? And you could have like that feeling.
Yeah.
And that feeling you love, right? When you experience it, you want to get it again.
Correct.
But now social media, you just scroll.
That's Robo catching fish.
It's hit of dopamine.
Yeah.
And what that does is like you start to satisfy like that like natural desire that you have for dopamine. But then when you sit at the computer to work, it's just dull. Right? You don't get like the dopamine that you get from work.
Yep.
Pales in comparison to the hits of dopamine that you get from scrolling social media.
Correct.
So when you sit down to work, it's just dull, right? And next thing you know, you pop open your phone, start scrolling a little bit, you put it down, start working again. But you just don't have that same kind of like drive and ambition that you would if your dopamine was just optimized to work, right?
Yeah.
If all your dopamine was optimized on like success and like winning, you would pursue that hard, right? You would have like a significantly more natural energy and determination to pursue your goals because that's where your dopamine comes from, right? But when like you're consuming social media in excess like that, and you're scrolling, you're completely just putting your neurochemistry like to work against you.
Totally.
It is discipline, right? Because I
1000%.
found that even with me deleting Instagram, right?
Yeah.
I'll then go to Twitter.
Right.
Now delete Twitter, and I'll then go to YouTube Shorts. Now delete YouTube.
Is that its own app?
No, YouTube is just YouTube Shorts.
I was gonna say it's in. I was gonna say.
I'll delete YouTube.
Right.
And then I'll go over to ESPN Fantasy, and I'll start looking at my players.
Right.
So ultimately, something I've found is that like my brain isn't looking for Instagram; it's looking for like the stimulation.
Totally, just you're doing something
from anything.
Totally.
Whether it's checking my email, like Instagram, Twitter. So like there's a level of it where like I think there's a lot of like kind of like tactics and like do this and it'll help.
Right.
But there is a level where you just have to like choose not to do it and like be disciplined enough to like ignore like the impulse to want it.
Totally.
You know?
And it's different. I feel like it's different when it works for you. Like as an example, like so like when I work out in the morning, I have to. It's the weirdest thing. I have the TV on, and then I also have music playing.
Right.
Does that make sense? But I like channeling both different things and being stimulated. When I'm working, same thing. Like if I'm working, I'll put on like CNBC like Squawk Box or whatever, and I'll put on like the stock thing, and I'm not even invested in any stocks or anything like that. Like I don't do any of that shit, right? Like I have like most people do it themselves. I have my financial advisor does that stuff for me, so I don't do it. I don't need to like be watching what happens, but I just keep it on in the background just as noise and something else is happening.
Right.
I don't know why. I just work better that way. But like I think the difference between like stimulating yourself is like what's stimulating you to boost you and help you actually get into it.
Right.
Actually, one of our team members, which is genius. I want anybody here who maybe this could benefit, but he's a big video gamer. He's one of our web designers. Shout out to Joey. But you know like Mario Kart, like he'll play
that song
in the background because you know when you're like it's kind of like he'll play video music, whatever you call it, music.
Video
you know what I'm trying to say. Fucking my brain. But he'll play that for stimulation, but that stimulation helps him because when he's like in video game mode, like that, when you hear that music, you're like, oh, come on, let's go.
Right.
Like, and it helps him.
Right.
So I think stimulation can be very beneficial depending on how you use it as a tool, as opposed to it not helping you based on whatever.
I agree with that because I think like it's easy to say like, hey man, just sit down at the desk, get on the computer, and just like do the work. And but at the same time, there is a level of merit to that as well.
Right.
Ultimately, I think the ultimate kind of like bottom line, like in either scenario, where you're just sitting down with your computer, silence, working, or like having the noise, like playing a little music, whatever the case may be. I think it's whatever allows you to focus.
Yeah.
Right. And that's been a massive insight that I've learned a lot recently. Is focus is like the absolute like metric, right? Because like
totally.
I look back.
That's why so many people take Adderall.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you can focus, that is literally like the ultimate kind of lever or thing you can like pull to like increase your performance, right?
I love how you did like milking a cow.
Like I'm thinking about like a rope. You know what I'm saying?
In editing, we have to put a cow on it.
You know, like the rope where you put like a police system does?
Correct, yeah.
That's what I was trying to mimic. But I think back to like 2019, 2018, where I was like, just like getting things started and like getting the ball rolling. Me and my friend Brian, like I mentioned earlier, we would go to Starbucks and like physically be there.
Dude, I remember that's all you posted.
Probably 10 hours a day.
Dude, you were only at Starbucks.
We were just there.
For like 10 years.
Boom. Like we were there every single day, right?
Yeah.
But if you ask what amount of that time was actually focused, we were physically there for 10 hours, but I would be lucky to say we were focused for 5.
Totally.
Right? Because like scrolling Instagram, talking, getting up to go get a water, coffee, going to the bathroom, getting back down, going on your phone, taking a call, like this, that. And next thing you know, maybe 3 to 5 hours of that was like actually focused.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you're like, oh man, like what
did I get done?
I worked for 10 hours. We worked all day.
Right. But what did you actually do?
Right. And so this formula that I learned, which is like really, really helps you like really internalize it, is performance equals potential minus distraction. And so what that means is, let's just say there's a guy, let's say you, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you're a 9 out of 10 in potential. Potential meaning like your capabilities, your talent, like what you can do.
Right. Or just my hair, whatever.
Right. and there's someone you're competing against that's like a 5 out of 10 in potential.
Right.
So he literally has half the talent as you, half the capabilities as you.
Right.
But if you're an 8 out of 10 in distraction, like you're not focused at all, you're scrolling social media doing X, Y, Z, your performance is only a 1 out of 10.
Right.
But if that guy with a 5 out of 10 in potential is only a 1 out of 10 in distraction, a 2 out of 10 in distraction, he's literally going to be 3 to 4 times more performance than you, who's significantly higher talent than he is.
Right.
But because he has less distraction, AKA is more focused, which is how you actually get focused, is by removing distraction.
Correct.
He's performing significantly better than you. Right. And like that has been a massive insight that I've learned recently. And looking back, I'm like, wow, like, there was so much time I was so unfocused. And now when I get locked in and focus, it's like, whoa, the results are way different.
It's a different ballgame.
100%.
And honestly, I think I've heard that. It's, by the way, fire fucking saying, like, or fire, wherever you got that, or if that's an OG. I want to end off on this. So is there anything, so right now, who are you motivated by in terms of, like, is there anybody out there, any books you're reading, podcasts, or anything that's really motivating and helping your personal development right now that you can share with people?
Man. I'll say this. God. God.
Big G.
Yeah, the big G, man.
I love it.
The big top G.
Uh-oh.
The reason I say that is because, I historically, like, haven't really had much, like, connections like faith or religion or anything like that. But recently, like, being in Arizona, there's actually like a house church that's one of the leaders in the company runs. Like, he does like a church in his house.
Okay.
He like invites like
friends. Dude, I fucking saw that on your story or something.
Yeah, friends and family come through, and man, like, it's been so insightful, extremely insightful, and like one of the best things I learned there is like, a lot of people who are religious like would say, I'm a child of God.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, people would say that, I'm a son of God, daughter of God, whatever the case may be. And he said, that's true. And the same way, like, Prince Harry in England, like, he has all of his financial needs covered for him. Everything that he needs is covered for him. Why?
He's Gucci.
Because he's royal, right? Like, he has that, prestige and status because he is, like, a descendant of the royal family, of royalty. And they're saying the same is true, like, with God. Like, if God is your father and he's the creator of the universe, creator of the world, the most high, then the same is true for you as his son.
Right.
You have access to, like, all of his wisdom, all of his resources, all of his abundance.
Right.
If you so choose.
Right.
Like, you have to actually allow that and open that door yourself. Right. And actually choose and actually like make yourself, quote unquote, like, fertile ground, like, for God to actually plant seeds in you, right? Because like another great thing that he said was like, all right, let's take this table, right?
Yep.
If you just throw a seed on this table, like, what, and you give it like 50 years, like, what's gonna happen? Nothing.
Right.
Like if you put a seed right here,
Right.
literally nothing is gonna happen to the seed.
Right.
But the reality is, like, most people's like hearts and minds is exactly like this table. It's like completely closed off to like opportunity, abundance, like, and it's just completely living in like scarcity.
It's not even open.
Yeah,
to
it's not open at
Right.
all, right? But if we were to, put a pot here, fill it with some, some dirt, put some minerals and stuff like that, make the dirt fertile.
Yeah.
Put some seeds in there, watered it. So now we were creating an environment, right, for like those seeds to actually flourish, right? And so when you connect that back to God, right, when you actually open like your heart and your mind, right, and actually kind of let go of like some like the scarcity, like the skepticism,
Right.
like the anxiety, like you kind of let go of some of those things, and like create that environment for like the abundance. Like that's when it actually starts to you actually start to accept those things into your life as a child of God. Like it's like your birthright. The same way Prince Harry has a birthright, is the same way like you have a birthright to those things as well.
Yeah.
But you have to actually,
Be open.
the environment for it to
put the work in. Be open.
Yeah.
I think it's really good, man. It's a really good point. And again, not many people, whether you are open, to God or not, or whatever, whether you believe in the universe, it could be whatever, right? I think one of the things for me, like I'm Catholic, and I think one of the biggest things for me, and I'm not like a great practicing Catholic. Like I don't go to church ever. I got to pray every day, right? But like I don't go to church often, whatever. But I think one of the biggest things, like my dad's side of my family, super religious. Like I remember growing up, if we'd go to the park, my bisavó, which was my great grandmother, my great grandmother, she's gonna be 97 this year, and every time we would leave the house, she would pray. Like, oh, we're going down the street, like we'd be in like middle school or elementary, or we're going to play kickball at the park, like 1 block. She'd be like, all right, come here, we're gonna say a prayer. Literally every second, right? She's like a saint to our family.
Really?
Yes. But to your point, one of the crazy parts is that like, when you ask, I think one of the biggest things I learned from that side of my family is that a lot of times we ask for things, whether it's from the universe, God, just think them into the universe, whatever the case could be. And it's like, I want to be the best leader ever. But where most people are broken, at least in my belief, it has nothing to do with religion. It's their openness to this table again with the seed, is they look at the fact they don't want to engage in the work of opportunity that is given to you. And I think that Steve Harvey said something like this at some point. I saw this on social media, where he was like, I asked God, for, the ability to, get my family out of poverty.
Right.
And he didn't do it for me. He gave me an opportunity.
Absolutely.
To put the work in, So I think to your point, like that's the thing, right? So whether you believe in the universe or God, whatever you believe in, right? I think that's the difference between what we're talking about here versus closed-minded people, where it's like some people look at the world that is just the way it is.
Right.
I have family members who think that way. They're like, oh man, this happened to me. This is that. And you and I only respect people who are worthy of respect, which is they have experience. They've been through some real shit. They're calloused because of experience. And I don't think I've ever respected somebody who's like just got coasted through life. I think I look at them as the opposite of respect. So I think at the end of the day, when you look at, I just want people out there to understand that, because I found myself like this recently, where I go in and out of these things, because you have to remember, so like I'm 31, since I'm 17, I've been like Tony Robbins junkie, super positive, mother effer, really optimistic, like looking at all these things, trying to learn. And sometimes you fall into these like, okay, well, this is the same old conversation,
right?
And in my head, so it's like I'm thinking the same things, whatever, I'm hearing the same things, and you can only play the same song for over and over and over. But I think my point though is that you have to be put in positions that scare you, or put you in a position that's like, oh fuck, that you move back into that humble position of like, no, this, what I was saying before, or that whole theory is important.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I think that was fire, and I love that you referenced that, because I did not see that coming. That's cool. So now, are you finding yourself like, are you going to church? Are you just more of like praying?
No, just like very. It's like, I don't have like any sort of like structure to it in regards to like a religion. Like I'm following this religion or that religion.
Right.
A lot of it aligns with Christianity.
Okay.
But I don't label myself like a Christian.
Got it.
But a lot of it does align with Christianity and like the Bible and stuff like that.
Got it.
But yeah, man, it's very just like.
Can you get that? We're gonna get a promoting thing.
It's kind of following some of that, like following a lot of those kind of values, because they just resonate with me.
Yep.
and exploring that kind of on my own. And that's been awesome. I think it does a lot for you, right?
Yeah.
There's a humbling side to it, right? Where like you're accepting like something else guiding you that's like not yourself, right? Because especially like when you're like doing things on your own, there's a big part of it you're like, all right, I'm gonna do it my way and like the way I think is right. And then when like, you like welcome kind of God into that, right? And I was like something else that's like guiding and like has some control.
Right.
As a man, that can be you could feel a little like uncomfortable with that
Dude.
at first.
Yeah.
You know,
you could.
maybe in general, maybe that feeling never goes away.
Yeah.
But there's like a part of that choice of allowing that because ultimately there's something kind of greater that's above you and you're just like a conduit.
Yeah.
You know, for it, you know.
It's oddly divine. But one of the things though too, so we're going to take a quick Commodity shot.
Let's rip it.
So we're going to rip a Commodity shot. I'm going to have Matt chase the first Commodity shot ever, right? And Matt's not a big drinker, so I really want your opinion on it. So we're going to start with white tea.
Okay, let's do it.
So and low ABV, so it's not a lot of alcohol in here.
Okay, ABV is alcohol per
ABV.
Oh, ABV.
Yeah, so low, it's just so it's just low. It essentially counts the whole bottle.
Okay.
So the whole thing is a low. It's a low
alcohol content.
Low alcohol content, exactly.
Okay.
Right, so you're not getting messed up on it.
Okay.
So
this doesn't even like smell very strong.
This is a vodka base. Okay.
Okay.
So let me know what you think.
It's pretty good. It doesn't burn at all, and it's sweet. It's almost exactly how you described it.
Exactly. So some people put that on ice.
I would put this on ice.
Yeah. Some people do.
Good.
One of the co-founders, his grandma puts it on ice, and she just like sipping it.
This is pretty good. The white one was. Obviously I haven't tasted this one. It has like a green apple.
Yeah.
Kind of taste.
So that one is pineapple.
Oh, pineapple.
Yes.
Okay, I can see that as well.
Little pineapple. Okay. So this is the green tea. So now this is whiskey.
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
This one was good as well.
That one's a little stronger.
This one is a little stronger, but it's not bad at all. It's not bad. Like from like the alcohol perspective, like it's not like a typical shot where you're like, you know. But again, like it has like the sweetness to it.
Yeah.
So it's very comfortable.
Yeah.
You know, like you drink it, you get your alcohol hit.
Yep.
But it's also enjoyable.
Right.
It's not like you're just throwing a shot back, throw a shot back.
All right. Where can people find you, bro? Like, how can they engage with the people listening right now?
Yeah, just the main thing is my Instagram. So it's at the Matthew Iglesias, which is IGLESIAS.
Right.
That's my main thing. My main platform is Instagram. That's where all my content goes now. And pretty much content-wise, it's mainly just the stories, right? Like the way I always do it now is whenever something's just like striking me mentally, that's when I post about it. Like you'll know kind of what I'm thinking about at one point in time, or like what I'm going through or what I'm learning about by what I'm posting. Right. Because whatever I'm posting is typically just an insight into like what I'm currently internalizing.
Totally.
So, it's obviously posted as like, hey, like this is, like a statement, but it's almost always just like, hey, what it really is, little inside information.
Little tip.
What it really is, hey, this is actually what I'm currently going through, and this is what I'm learning.
Right.
Boom.
So you're literally just following the journey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So in a way that most people wouldn't know that, but now you do.
Well, dude, it's great to see you again.
Dude, likewise.
Happy 21st, right?
21st.
21.
Officially 21. We're not doing anything illegal on the podcast.
He's 20 fun now. So 20 fun.
That's right.
Yeah. So
that's right.